Good evening, folks. How you doing? Chris McCraw, Mercury here, and I was just making this video. This is actually something that's been on my mind, and I've actually been thinking about and everything for a long time. But I've never heard this really been put out by anybody, and I'm gonna try to take a whole bunch of different threads and put them together in a cohesive fashion and present it to you for your discernment. Now, the reason that I'm making this video is because I've been watching some videos on YouTube from DanielVincentKelley, and he's been publishing some videos regarding meteorites, Nibiru fireballs coming down from the sky. And I think what he's covering here is pretty important, because these meteorites are not normal. They're not atypical meteorites, and the frequency that people are seeing them all over the world is rather intriguing. And he puts forth in his videos a lot of information about Nibiru, and the subject of Nibiru is so diverse because, you know, of course, Sakurai Sitchin is one of the originators of you know, this Nibiru. He's the one that coined this phrase. But there are other people like Marshall Masters. I just found some other guy on the internet with this clip that I just researched for this video. And so what I'm doing is Daniel, I want to thank you very much for your coverage. It's awesome. Keep going with it, man. And I just want to open up a dialogue that, you know, we take all these different views and everything and try to put it together in a cohesive manner so we can be enlightened as to what the heck is happening around us. So here goes the first video from Daniel, where he's talking about the Toba supervolcano and some interesting footage that comes from Mexico.
Yeah, right. Like we wouldn't be able to see it without the highlight. Yeah. I was doing a video just earlier today talking about Toba, the supervolcano that it near extincted humanity about 75,000 years ago. The Toba supervolcano exploded, and they say that there was about 1,000 human survivors, and that it was a bottleneck event for humanity, that apparently only one family survived, which is shown true by the fact that there's only one Y chromosome. That there was one Y chromosome that survived the Toba supervolcano. By saying one Y chromosome, I'm talking about human genetics, the human DNA. All male humans have a Y chromosome, and generally the Y chromosome is passed from father to son, for the most part intact. That if there's a change to the Y chromosome at all, then it's an anomaly, and it signifies that there's when that person whose anomalous Y chromosome has been born with some variants of their father's Y chromosome, then they will, if they procreate, then they will replicate their Y chromosome, not their father's Y chromosome. And so the there's like some formula that they apply to how often it is that the Y chromosome is at all modified, and so they can get a guess as to how many generations back the Y chromosome has been in existence. That they expect it to change every so often. I'm gonna guess that there's a bunch of factors like exposure to radiation that would cause the Y chromosome to morph. Anyhow, the Y chromosome that is universal human, that every human on Earth shares, is descended from the time of the Toba supervolcano. And scientists have published this theory that they believe that it was the effect of the supervolcano that caused there to be a crash in human population. Essentially, they say that they believe the cloud, the ash cloud from the volcano, so blotted out the sun that human food was not able to grow. Yeah, so there wasn't like berries and leaves and all this for people to eat, and so humanity went out of existence without food across about 5 years of the sun being blotted out.
What fascinates me on this planet is the diverse, many different races we have here. Is it because of environment and locale, or are these all... I've always thought about this.
The more we look at the different race groups on planet Earth, we call ourselves the human race, but we're not one race. We're distinctly several different race groups. That becomes very interesting and often a very sensitive subject, but something that needs to be discussed openly without, racial prejudice and so forth. So it becomes more and more compelling. The evidence becomes overwhelming that we did not really evolve to this point in time. We somehow were manipulated into this point in time.
For a specific reason, no doubt.
Yeah, exactly.
Some evolutionists, Michael, would say, George, don't use the word popped up. We evolved, yet it's pretty convincing that we kind of just showed up all of a sudden, isn't it?
This cradle of humankind that is being sold to the world doesn't have any human skeletons in it. We have hominids in there, Australopithecus africanus and Mrs. Bless and Littlefoot, and wonderful examples of over 500 fossils that have been excavated from the Sterkfontein caves, just sort of northwest of Johannesburg. Over 500 fossils, if I've got it right. But they're all hominids, no human skeletons there. So these are all the supposedly pre-human evolutionary states. They are not human. This has become a very hot political debate in South Africa because some people believe that you've become a racist and you're drawing racial lines here, and it's got nothing to do with that. You just, you've got to call it what it is. You've got to call it as you find it. You can't start becoming politically sensitive to one group or another.
No, this is anthropology. Are these all various races from other extraterrestrials that have been here, and they've manipulated in their own image? So the Asian person, the Caucasian, the African, they are in the image of the extraterrestrial that came to this planet a long time ago. Have you ever thought of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, you obviously give this stuff a great deal of thought, and I think you put your finger right on the button one more time. Again, I look at this scientifically, genetically, and if we only appeared as a species 250,000 years ago, not enough time has passed for these different race groups to have evolved. And I don't care what anybody throws at you, it's just not going to happen, because the strength of the genetic pool that keeps the Asian person Asian is so strong, it just doesn't make any sense. And the same goes with African people. The strength of the gene pool of the African defies the movement away from that into somebody like me who's got a little pale skin and gets burned when I run into the sun. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, and there's not enough time that has passed on Earth for us to have evolved so dramatically into these 3 or 4 distinctly different race groups. And that's why when I said earlier we call ourselves the human race, well, we're not really the human race, because we are not one race group. We are 3 or 4, possibly more, distinctly different race groups. But the obvious ones are the Caucasians, the Asians, the Chinese. I suppose when I say Asian, I mean the Chinese type look, and then the black African, and that is fascinating stuff, because it becomes a melting pot of debate. That what is interesting is earlier this year, I think it was in February, Craig Venter, the sort of so-called father of the Human Genome Project, gave a speech which blew everyone's mind, and it certainly blew my mind, because he mentioned some startling facts. Until very recently, we were all sold the story that all humans are 99.9% genetically the same,
right,
identical. Well, that is no longer the case. Okay, with the Human Genome Project studies, they found out that between people and especially different race groups, there is up to a 2 or a 3% difference in their genetic structure.
And that's a big difference, isn't it?
It's a huge difference.
It's almost, Michael, as if they all came from different places in the universe.
That's certainly what it seems like. It seems like there might have been a prototype kind of person built here, and then another group by one group of extraterrestrial settlers for a specific purpose. The cloning of the humans by the Annunaki, many of your listeners will be very familiar with that. That seems to be a specific point in time, and possibly with some of the earliest human manipulation of this new species called Homo sapien.
We talk about just how we evolved on this planet. You know, we're talking about the work of Zecharia Sitchin and his theories of the 12th planet. Robert Saffier does a very thorough job trying to coordinate all the various people who are talking about this. And it's growing, I think. It's growing, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
I was watching something on Nibiru today. I'm going to find what this video was. Something from the History Channel. I think they get it wrong, because they posit that Nibiru and the Annunaki, that they are extraterrestrial, that they're from some other planet, that is orbiting some distant star, and that they came here to mine gold, and they're going to bring gold back to their planet at some distant star.
This is the difficult part of this video briefing for us as Planet X researchers, because we really do understand how these various different Planet X flyby scenarios could work out. I can remember back in 2003 when I was making guest appearances on Coast to Coast and saying clever things like, the surface of the Earth could wiggle like a bowl of jello. With a comfortable distance of time, such clever radio sound bites were all too easy. Yet as clever as they were, perhaps it turns out they could be closer to what may happen than I could have imagined. In February of this year, we published a report with 8 different flyby scenarios, ranging from the best case to the worst case. I strongly urge you to view that video if you have not already done so. In this video briefing, I'm going to take a look at what could be a likely worst case scenario. I want to strongly emphasize to you before I do this that there is no true likely worst case scenario. This is an unstable object, it's a fast mover, and things could change at any time. I want to strongly urge you, the viewer, to understand that when Planet X crosses the ecliptic, you will go into an area we call the kill zone. We fully explained the kill zone in our February 2009 report. For now, what we need to keep in mind is that this is when the worst case, or the best case scenario for that matter, will occur. Assuming there can only be one best case scenario and likewise one worst case scenario, the odds of one or the other happening is 50-50. This is because a best case scenario can only happen if Planet X passes through the kill zone while it is on the side of the Sun opposite from Earth. However, if Planet X passes through the kill zone while it is on our side of the Sun, then that is when the most likely worst case scenario will occur. As we have stated in this video and countless other times, this object is a fast mover in a comet-like orbit, and it is unpredictable. So a definitive estimate as to whether we'll have a best case or a worst case scenario is virtually impossible. Even if we could somehow manage to connect all of the computers in the world together to form one massive computing machine, it would be hard-pressed to better our 50-50 odds at this time. Because of these limitations, the best we can do now is to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And there's only one way we can really do that at this point in time. We must look beyond the limits of traditional science into a realm of inquiry where we take into account prophecies from the Holy Bible, Mother Shipton, Nostradamus, Leonardo da Vinci, and many others. Taken all together, what we see is a recurring pattern consistent with the pole shift prophecy of the sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce. With this in mind, we've watched the trailers for the forthcoming 2012 movie by Sony with great interest. While there is nothing in the trailers to explain how these events come about, what we see as Planet X researchers is very clearly an Edgar Cayce pole shift. So if you really want to know what the worst case scenario would be, then go watch the movie. And yes, keep in mind it is Hollywood, and that they are taking creative license, and that they tend to exaggerate things. However, when we look at it, at least from what we see from the trailers, it's a spot-on Edgar Cayce pole shift, complete with mega tsunamis, superquakes, and supervolcano eruptions. One thing we've noticed with Sony's 2012 movie trailers is that they open with this really ominous 2012 Mayan prediction. Well, the Maya were telling us something much more than that. Yes, it's the end of an era, but it's also the beginning of a new era. And let's keep that in mind as we look at what could be a possible worst-case scenario for 2012 and beyond.
As we can see from what Marshall Masters just said, um, Planet X, Nibiru, Nemesis, the Destroyer, whatever you want to call this object, it's going to be very close. So it's going to be rather easy. I mean, it's easy for us. It's not real easy, but I mean, we travel to Mars. So why wouldn't these beings, while they're sweeping through our solar system, why wouldn't they be able to come here, retrieve a cargo of gold, and then go back out and get back on their planet as the planet's being slung out of our universe, or out of our cluster of planets, because obviously it's part of our universe. We're
Anyhow, the Anunnaki, they, well, recent science has uncovered a mine in South Africa where gold was mined as early as 150,000 years ago. I did a video recently about the Grand Canyon and how there's evidence that the Grand Canyon is not a result of what is it called, the water wearing down the canyon to form canyon walls, that it is actually a mine, that it was very recently exposed, much of the Grand Canyon, and quite apparently by human effort.
That is a very interesting concept, that the Grand Canyon is actually an open pit mine. That is a very interesting proposition. Another interesting proposition I heard was on Coast to Coast last week. I forgot the guest's name, but he was putting forth that pyramids were and the terraces that are carved into the mountainsides in the Andes in southern South America were a means of extracting gold. That these things were somehow like a riffle box in a sluice, and that these terraces and stuff actually extracted the gold. Now that's another very interesting proposition. Me being a gold miner, I would want to see some evidence, like where did their ore come from? Now, if the Colorado River, let's just say that the Grand Canyon was a gold mine. Okay, there would be gold-bearing gravel throughout the Colorado River, all the way down until it, dumped into the ocean. To my knowledge, the Colorado River is not a great gold-bearing body of water. There are rivers, smaller rivers here in California that are gold-bearing, and that's because they come from mountains, which have gold-bearing ores. So actually, any body of water is a potential gold mine, but you're not going to see, and it's going to be really difficult to see evidence of that later. I mean, you can go around and look at places where just 100 years ago here in California, where they mined, and it's not real evident. And in fact, the only places where you're really going to be able to see it is where they've hydraulic mined. And that's where they take a monitor and they aim it at the side of a mountain, and they erode away the side of the mountain into a stream. and then they, you know, extract the gold out of it. So, and that doesn't leave any terraces. You don't need terraces to extract the gold. You actually need, you know, like a very long sluice box. And actually in those large scale hydraulic mines, it wasn't unusual to have a sluice box that was a couple feet wide, couple feet deep, and this sucker ran for, you know, 300-400 yards. And they just, you know, would take all of the water and material coming off that mountainside and divert it into this huge sluice box. And the water going down the sluice box would carry away the lighter material and would leave the gold in the riffles. So I would want to see where the tailings are. Because if they were doing placer mining on a large scale, there's going to be tailings, and that's the only way that you can really mine a placer gold deposit. And plus, it's laying right on top of the bedrock. You know, we can go out here in the creek right below where I live right now, and we can dig down from few inches to, you know, maybe 20 or 30 feet, and we're right on top of that bedrock where the gold deposits are. So you're not going to need any great excavation to dig down that far to create the Grand Canyon, the excavation that is the Grand Canyon. And so that's a very interesting, plausible thing. But check out the electric universe. The electric universe provides an explanation to these large chasms and why the mountains form. And it's an electrical discharge. It comes from the sun, could come from this Nibiru planet, and it causes a plasma arc that creates a canyon like that. It's not created by water. It's created instantly. I agree. It is a very recent development, but I think it comes from the electric universe. It's not a gold mine, but great idea. And
the biggest thing that doesn't make any sense to me about this story that they'd be from another planet is if they traveled here, you know, the closest star is about 10 light years away. So if they traveled here at, say, half light speed, which is incomprehensible to us, light travels at 186,000 miles per second. But if they traveled at, you know, some phenomenal speed, then, you know, it might take them 20 years, 100 years to travel across space to reach here. But why would they breed humans to do their mining? You know, if they're so technologically advanced to travel from star to star through space, why would they not create robots to do mining for them? You know, we're capable of creating robots to do mining now. Why wouldn't they do that instead, rather than, you know, suffer the precocious situation of having these sentient beings who might rise up against them, which happened time and again throughout history, that the slaves got rambunctious and decided that they weren't going to take the order of the rulers anymore. You know, it's pretty much that's what's going on Earth right now.
I can think of several reasons why organisms would be better than technology. First off, everything that is material, I don't care if it's mountains or whatever, the mountains fall into the sea eventually. There's, you know, constant hydrological action happening here on the planet. there's a lot of oxygen. And when the water hits with that oxygen, it hits anything, it starts to decompose. So that's why we don't see remnants of these old civilizations, because everything that they created is gone. You know, if you come back and look at our civilization in 100 years, you're not going to be able to tell we existed. You know, because most of our houses will crumble and fall away. Floods will come and totally displace the you know, the surface of the planet. Tornadoes, earthquakes. You know, it doesn't take long to change things on the surface. So that's why you would want a live organism that is adapted to this planet, which has already been here for millions of years. Because when the Anunnaki came here, they checked out what was going on here, and they said, "Wow, this is a really dynamic planet. If we just left machines here, which I'm sure they probably did, it's very difficult for them to take care of themselves. It's very difficult for them to find new places to mine or whatever. It's very difficult for us to move our mining operations to other parts of the planet. Maybe I have no idea what situation the creators had when they came here. But like I said, that if I was going to terraform or try to leave some kind of presence on a planet, I would do it with an organism, because that is going to have a better chance of survival than me just building a monument or leaving a machine to do some kind of work unattended, especially if this work that they're doing is really fucking important. And that's something that's really intrinsic to us human beings, and we become very unhappy when we don't feel that we have a purpose. So, of course, if I was going to create something, I would create them with this question, this need to serve something, to be of service to something else. And you know, what if these beings created us, you know, kind of like a dog? You know, dogs love us, man. Dogs could go off and live on their own, but they love us. They have a symbiotic relationship with our psyche, and they truly enjoy living their lives with us, fulfilling our selfish needs, because, you know, most dog owners, you know, it's a total, the only reason they have the dog is a source of unconditional love. Okay. Other people may have dogs because the dog has, you know, sense of smell. It actually does some work, you know, with the owner. So, you know, the dog is a slave species to us. So why do we have dogs? Why don't we have robotic dogs? Well, you know, because the dog is alive. You know, I'm not going to love. I may like what, you know, a robotic dog would do, you know, but it's still going to leave battery shits all over the house or chew up my freaking shoes or something like that. And, you know, there's a big difference between, you know, a robotic dog and, you know, a live dog, you know. So I think that's why our creator created us, to be his workforce. And not only that, but we're supposed to also be his warriors, because there's all this fighting going on throughout history. In the old days, if you look at, you know, the Anunnaki, the Sumerian text and stuff like that, those guys were fighting wars. And so you don't want to just create some machine to go out and fight for you. You want to create them like you, in your likeness, and you want to give them as many emotions and aggression. A robot. What happens to a robot if um, it loses its arm or something like that? Does an other robot have enough compassion to help its disabled um, robot friend to save it, so they can carry on the fight? No, but a sentient being does. You will take care of your wingman because he is covering you. You are covering him, and you will risk your life to get him back to the medic. Um, Robots don't fight like that, and even if they have programming that did, um, it I don't think it really works. And especially when you're talking about like a catastrophic event. If there's some kind of catastrophic event that is an extinction event, I don't think the 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 robots necessarily would survive, because like I said, we've been here for an awful long time. Our mitochondrial DNA says that human beings, in our DNA, mitochondrial DNA goes back at least 200,000 to 250,000 years. So, we've been here for a long time as we look and appear today. So, that's just why I think that there's a lot of advantages to that. And like you're saying about the revolts and stuff, well, that's just a part of the process. And maybe that's part of really what they're harvesting from us. Maybe it's not just the gold that they're harvesting from us. Maybe they're tapping into our fear and the energy that is created that way, and they somehow feed off that, because maybe they're not of this dimension. Maybe they're interdimensional beings or something like that. And, they have other knowledge and everything like that. And let's just go back to the point where let's say that these things came from another star, from Alpha Centauri or something like that. These beings, if we look into the ancient texts, these things lived a long time. Noah lived like 1,000 years. He was supposedly a human. So obviously in the past we had a lot longer longevity than we do today. And maybe that's because our DNA is getting retarded. We're getting mutated by this GMO food, the RF environment and everything. Maybe it's repressing our DNA from playing the sequence that's supposed to, or something like that. I don't know. But so anyway, if we're made in their image, and Noah lasted 1,000 years, gosh, what if these things, lived like 10,000, 100,000 years, man? What if they were, and for all intents and purposes, you might want to call that immortal? It's beyond my comprehension. But, obviously we were created by something much bigger than us, and we are kept ignorant for specific reasons, and there are people on the planet that know what's going on, the Illuminati, and they're trying to enact their new world order. So obviously they've got information. They're working to keep the masses ignorant of certain things, so we don't realize what we really are.
So it would make no sense for them to use sentient beings that were of a capacity to scheme against these people that are dominating them. It'd be a lot easier for them to just make some robots, make robots that make robots, and then have the robots do all the mining.
Well, I think that you're really downplaying the interaction that the creators and ancient humans used to have. I mean, um, we used to live with the gods. The gods lived here on Earth, and and that was a joyous time. And no matter what culture you look at, man, I don't care if it's the Aztecs thinking that, when the Spanish came, that was Quetzalcoatl, and um, and that was fulfilling of their prophecy, or Christians today thinking that Jesus is going to come down, and there's going to be a rapture, and all the believers are going to be taken up into heaven. Um, this is so much more powerful than a force of robots. Sure, you can have a drone drop a Hellfire missile, on somebody um, on the other side of the world, but um, there's 7 billion of us. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of computing power to get that drone up in the air, and support, because it's not just that drone, man. It takes dozens of people to put that fighting drone out there in the battlefield, you know? So, what better way to it just makes much more sense. Like, when I was talking about the survivability thing with the catastrophic event, but humans were very useful. We got these 10 fingers and 2 hands and these feet, and we can do a great many tasks. We can fight. We can mine. We can take care of ourselves. Master don't have to come down and do too much for us, but we have this delusion that he's going to come back, though. And that's really key to our existence. For why? I mean, even atheists, man, they have an intrinsic need to serve and do something better, greater than themselves. And this is something that all humans have. Um, and it leads back to that fighting thing, dude. Like I said, if they somehow feed on our energy from us fighting, and not only that, but the fighting that they themselves do between each other, because you must have light and dark to have balance. There's always chaos and conflict going on in nature. There's always, and if one force takes over, that's just passing, because the other force is going to come forth and dominate it too, the yin yang. Another key advantage that we have over machines is greed. Creator gave us greed, and if we can shun greed, we can create a lot of great things within us. But it seems like most of humanity is focused on acquiring resources and denying those resources to anyone else. So, and this seems to be a real intrinsic part of us. And it would seem if we could get over that greed, we could really become free, But it seems that even Creator himself is dominated by greed and fear and pride, and all these things that afflict humanity. So from if you're just going to build a machine to go out and do something like mine gold, The machine, it's just gonna, okay, great. You got machines that work on the machines, and the machines, whatever. You've got this loop. Well, you're not gonna be able to create greed within any one of those machines that's gonna make the whole machine better. You're not gonna get one robot that's gonna, try to outproduce all the other robots because, they're seeking favor from master. No, they're inanimate objects, man. You tell them to do something, they're gonna do it until they're physically not able to do it. And there's no way for them or incentive for them to improve, evolve, or adapt to what's going on right now. And like you say, it's very interesting that we have this culture where we revolt against our keepers, yet we don't. There's only a very few. I mean, I consider myself very antisocial, and oh yeah, I'd like to think I'm independent, but no, I'm intrinsically dependent on the entire human race. And that dependence, I mean, just goes back to the one source, the one singularity. We are all one, and we are one. But anyway, um so you can't give a robot greed, and it wouldn't be a good thing. So you would give it to an intrinsic being that would have pride and ownership, because is the goal, is the robot going to want to steal the gold for his own? Is he going to want to steal it from other robots to gain favor with the higher power? No. It's just going to do its job, and if it can't do its job, it's not going to feel very. It's not going to, it doesn't care. If it's broken, it's broken, and but a human being is very distraught if they do not have something to do, if they don't fit into society, if they don't produce something for society. And that's kind of like human, our existence and our being. And like I said, it has to do with conflict, transfer of energy. Yeah, I'm not really sure why, but it seems to me that, and it goes back to like governments, is we think we're free, and you get a lot more production out of a slave if they think they're free than if they really are free. So that's why we always initiate or inundated with the these illusions that we are free, just because we can go down and get Coke or Pepsi at the store, we think we're free. But it's a lot more than that. And if we're denied access to the information that would make us think about what's really going on, we're making these videos, and we're postulating this weird shit, and looking like kook brains. Well, hey Daniel, I want to thank you very much for providing the inspiration and asking these questions, because I don't fucking know shit, dude. All I can do is regurgitate what I've heard and put together different things that I've seen into a cohesive view that makes sense to me. So what you say is very important. What we all say is very important, because we all have a piece of the kernel of truth. And if we can take all these little pieces together and put them together and try to step away from it and look at it objectively, maybe we can come out on top of this. I can't believe how far this is already, like almost an hour video. And I'm not even getting into what I really wanted to say in this video. So I'm gonna have to make out another video. So if you're still listening to this and you were intrigued by this gold, power structure, money, paradigm, and how it really affects us human beings, and why, you know, please subscribe to my channel, share this video, and leave a comment, and let me know what direction I need to go. Thank you very much, and you have an awesome day.